Hey everybody, I'm back for a part 2 from the last episode where I talked about the predators as I see them, these quacks pushing urine enemas and urine drinking. And it's gotten worse. My assessment of the situation has gotten worse. And really, really unnerving, disgusting. So I guess I'll start with basically what I covered in the last episode, and go check that out if you haven't seen it. Disregard all the sock puppet accounts thumbing it down because I'm right over the target. Or actually, do take that into account. That's actually my first point here. Actually, let me start with what I said in the video. Then we'll talk about the reaction. In the video, I said that drinking your urine is gross. You're reintroducing waste into your body. You're exposing yourself to more toxins, especially if you're a toxic body. And think about, like, who's actually going to be drinking their urine? Like, you must be pretty desperate for a medical miracle or whatever. Like, try anything. Let's throw the kitchen sink at it. Let's throw the bathroom toilet at it. Like, you must be pretty desperate to drink urine. And I went back and I watched the Cowan-Volmer shit show. Piss show, whatever you want to call it. That was hard to watch. I mean, this is like worse than horror genre to me. Because I know that there are suggestible people out there that will start drinking their piss every morning. And just the total quackery, this terrible advice being spewed by these people makes me absolutely sick to my stomach. The thought of people drinking their urine makes me sick to my stomach. I also brought up the social aspects here. That if you get caught by anybody, or if you actively tell somebody that you're drinking your urine or doing a urine enema, that's basically committing social suicide, which I wouldn't recommend in any respect, committing social suicide. Like 100% of the world's population looks at that as absolutely disgusting, and rightfully so. We've all had experience with urine in our life, right? We're humans, and we go to the bathroom, and sometimes it's, really nasty, right? I can't believe I have to explain this stuff. So, I was thinking about the enema aspect here. That why are they pushing urine enemas? And I was thinking it's probably, for one, because the aesthetics, the taste, and the whole experience of drinking urine is so miserable and ego destroying that they can't probably convince somebody to keep drinking their urine every day. So I'm guessing that's why they maybe switched to urine enemas. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they're pushing the urine drinking. Of course, I don't look at like their stated objective. Like, oh, it's a medical, medicinal cure-all, or whatever they're saying. The quackery that whatever they're pushing urine for. I don't look at that as like the actual reason why they're pushing it. So the question is, why are people pushing urine drinking? Why is Stu Peters and his advertisers pushing urine drinking? Why does Cowan have on Volmer, and why do they propagate this crap? There's, of course, the pharmacodynamics of it. Any waste that they can get you to reintroduce into yourself, it's going to have some negative effect, I'd imagine. There's the psychological effect, the humiliating effect of it, the social stigmatization of it, the basically social suicide that they're convincing people to commit. But I haven't really figured it out exactly as to why would they be trying to get people to do urine enemas. Like, I was thinking about it last night, like the urine enemas, because we know when you do an enema, you're skipping the digestive system, and it's more likely to just be absorbed and go into circulation, right? So what is in the urine that they're trying to get people to reintroduce into their bodies? That's like one piece of the puzzle that I haven't really figured out. I feel like there's probably a really good explanation that somebody might be able to figure out and email me, timtruth@protonmail.com. But yeah, I was thinking last night, I was like laying awake, couldn't sleep. I'm like, oh, the enemas, that's to increase the absorption. That's like if you, I remember hearing crazy people that would do like alcohol enemas or something, and it would get them way more drunk way quicker, for example. I'm just going off memory from like decades ago. Not that I did that. But I was also thinking, and then it got, my hopes got dashed, but I was thinking, oh, it's very reminiscent to ivermectin. When I called out the ivermectin, and then, the views go through the roof because there's all these sock puppet accounts coming just to leave nasty comments to try to discredit me, try to get people back on the bandwagon, try to push all the ivermectin one-liners to convince people to take this neurotoxic, genotoxic poison. And I had a very similar experience, and it kind of hit me by surprise with the urine video I made the other day. The amount of vitriol I got, the amount of lunacy. And by the way, I'm deleting all comments. I'm not going to allow my channel, which I make very, very little money off of. I'm barely scraping by, very poor person. I'm not going to be used to turn my work. I'm not going to allow people to piggyback on my work to turn it into a urine advertisement. That's absurd. So block, block, block. I was a water polo goalie in college, and I'm just hardwired. When I see a threat, I block it. Block, block, block. I don't like my team getting scored on, and that includes my audience being convinced to drink their own piss or to shove it up their butt. I can't believe I'm even having to say this. But some of the feedback I got, at first I was like a little bit concerned. I'm like, oh, maybe I did mispaint some characters that I brought up. People were like, oh, Tim, why didn't you share any videos of Cowan pushing methylene blue? And so I was like, oh, maybe I can retract that. Maybe I can look this up and say, oh, good, he didn't push methylene blue. But lo and behold, I found this video here, a discussion on chlorine dioxide, ozone, and methylene blue. And again, this is like worse than horror in my book because people are actually watching this, incredibly suggestible people. That's why this video is made, in my opinion. I can see right through like the plain dumb that he does in this video. I have some notes on it that I might go through here. I also have some clips that I chopped up for my records and such. But I was mostly interested in the methylene blue, and it obviously came up when my search result. And then I'm like, oh shit, he's pushing chlorine dioxide too, that poison. They're pushing poisonous ozone. And so I started looking into it, and you can tell he's picking his words very carefully. He uses like so-called a lot. Oh, the so-called miracle, the so-called amazing healing properties. It seems and it feels like, and I haven't heard any negative effects. Now, why would a doctor put out a video like this at all to a bunch of people who look up to him for medical advice? Like, there's only one reason I can think of. And if you look at his comments in the video, it's to increase the uptake of these substances. I mean, he says, quote, they're very safe substances, talking about methylene blue and chlorine dioxide. Quote, a wonderful and appropriate tool. He compares it to sex, to recharging your battery, to oxygen. He compares it to fucking oxygen. So I'm at the point where I hate these people. I absolutely hate them. And I'm seeing through their plain dumb. And then I watched the video, I think I already said this, with Vollmer and Cowan talking about like rubbing piss all over themselves and doing urine enemas. And at the end, I wish I had the exact quote. I should have written this down. But at the end, Cowan's like, oh, you bring up some great points. I think you sold me. And then they end the show there. I think in the video, she like talks about doing it every single day. Waking up, taking a piss, and then drinking your piss in the morning. Every single day. What the hell? Like, I feel late to covering this as well. But then I got off on a tangent, a rabbit hole looking into chlorine dioxide. And that's a really gnarly, nasty substance as well. I mean, look at this headline. A leader of a movement touting toxic bleach as a miracle COVID-19 cure has been charged following a 5-year-old boy's death. So a 5-year-old boy dies because his parents were fooled by people like Cowan, people like this Andreas Calker guy, which, by the way, is brought up by name in the Cowan video. Maybe I should just open this project up in my video editor and show you some of these clips. But he's like he's giving links, telling people where to buy it. Oh, you can buy it off Amazon. Here's how much to mix into your water. Just keep drinking it throughout the day. Just the worst assessment of toxicity, like no mention of toxicity other than calling it very safe. Tell that to this boy. Oh, that's right. You can't because he's dead because your friend Andreas pushed it on him. And by the way, this article here talks about how Andreas Calker is charged by Argentinian authorities with falsely promoting toxic bleach as a medical cure. The investigation was launched after a boy of age 5 died after being given the substance by his parents. And so look at the dates here. This was September 2021. Okay, and then Cowan comes out years later, still touting this guy as like a world expert on chlorine dioxide. Maybe we'll just watch some of this. Again, this is not, it is his medical advice, but it's not mine. And to the YouTube censorship patrol, I am wholeheartedly against this, and I'm exposing this, and I see this as really evil.
A lot of people have asked, and they've heard me mention and talk about in the New Biology Clinic practitioners a number of medicines or so-called medicines. And
so-called medicines. Oh, medicines. So-called medicines. Wonder why he did that. Wonder why he's couching all his phrasing here. Also, didn't he lose his license for pushing a product that's like not supposed to be pushed? I don't know the full details on that, but even after getting his wrist slapped, he's still going on the internet telling people to take toxic or suggesting toxic drugs. And who knows what these guys are doing inside of his clinic.
They are rightfully so, the people, wondering how these fit into new biology principles. Because some of them are so-called natural substances, but some of them are actually what you would call chemicals. So the list includes chlorine dioxide or chlorine dioxide solution, and methylene blue, ozone, turpentine, carbon 60, zeolite, and there's probably others. And so there's a lot of controversy, I think, within our group as to, well, everything from these are amazing healing substances which everyone should have in their therapeutic handbag.
Then he says, oh, this is an extreme. Oh, I wouldn't say an extreme.
That's one extreme or one position. I wouldn't say extreme. And another position is I would never use something like those because they're basically chemicals or maybe they're from natural things, but they can only repress symptoms. And anyways, aren't they meant to kill organisms like viruses and bacteria and fungi? And I thought that we're not about killing stuff because...
Yeah, and if it's killing bacteria, if it's killing fungi, then what do you think it's doing to the human? It kills 5-year-old boys too, apparently. My gosh, this is just absolutely disgusting. So I have some more toxicity information on this, but I want to talk about the overarching premise and why I think you're seeing so much of this pushed in the alternative circles. So there's certain injectable products that people will not shut up about. They'll just continually raise the bar as far as like what they're attributing to these injectable products as far as deaths and harms. And you've seen my coverage. You know where I stand. I can't be too specific right now. But think about the different groups in society, right? Think about the different groups. There are people who watch the television and do whatever the media says, especially if they can get like 10 different media outlets to say the same thing. If all the media outlets are saying the same thing, all the politicians are saying the same thing, all the scientists they bring up on the television say the same thing, then So there's a group of society that will just follow those people. Then there are the dissenters, many of whom wrongly use the assumption that they'll just do the exact opposite of what the television says. The reverse psychology kicks in. So when they see a headline like this, a leader of a movement touted toxic bleach as a miracle COVID-19 cure has been charged following a 5-year-old boy's death. Some people who call themselves dissenters, which I guess you could, nothing precludes you from being a dissenter, from just being erroneously attached to reverse psychology to your own fault. Some people will scroll down. Where can I find this stuff? I need to take this. If the media doesn't want me to take it, then I'm going to go take that substance that they say killed the 5-year-old boy, because that's probably a hoax. And it is probably a miracle because the media says it's not a miracle. And if they say it's toxic bleach, I remember they were saying that I shouldn't drink bleach. And, well, I'm going to do the opposite of what the media says. So that's one of the worst ways to make a decision possible. But that does happen a lot. But my point is there's the two groups, the dissenters and the order followers. And which ones do you think are more targeted for depopulation? We've covered over and over again these dastardly depopulators. And I'm going to bring it up again here. This is the first chairman, I believe, the first leader of UNESCO, the United Nations Science, Education, and Cultural organization. Julian Huxley. We must plan our eugenic policy along some such lines as the following. The lowest strata, allegedly less well endowed genetically, are reproducing relatively too fast. Therefore, birth control methods must be taught to them. Right? So they're talking about lowering the fertility. We've covered this over and over again. I've got videos about, with quotes, showing that the people who are concerned about the world's population, of course, they're well aware that they need to reduce the fertility, they need to reduce the lifespans, and they need to target certain groups. That's the idea of positive and negative eugenics. Right? And how do they do that? Well, for certain animals that the powers that be want to get rid of, say a rat infestation, you can't convince the rat to take a poisonous medicine. Right? The rat doesn't understand language. You can't tell the rat that it's going to recharge their battery. You can't tell the rat that it's going to cure their cancer. You can't scare them, tell them they're infested with parasites and that if they take this toxic ivermectin bullshit that it's going to go away. That's a unique feature to humans. And that allows the higher cognitive function of humanity allows the wolves in sheep's disguises to use entirely different mechanisms to trick people into taking toxic poisons to reduce fertility and shorten lifespans. Right? So people need to be on guard. Look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Only some of those can be exploited for the rat. The need for water and food. Maybe air somehow you could utilize that drive. That'd be a lot harder. Namely, food is used, right? They poison the food. Think about the fish that the fisher is trying to get. Well, they put they put some food on a hook. So the fish says, oh, this is a great meal. I'm going to go I'm going to go eat this. Oh, shoot, I'm hooked. Or the trap, right? In the case of the trap, the food doesn't have to be poisoned. It just has to lure the animal into the trap where it's stuck. Or in the case of the rat poison, it's mostly, say 99%, good food, enough that the rat wants to eat as much as it can, get full, and then go off, and then it dies because the poison kicks in. But for humans, they can use these other motives, these other motivators. Let's see if we can find this real quick. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So all of these things can be exploited, including self-actualization, right? Including esteem, love and belonging. But I think these bottom two tiers are the most heavily exploited. Safety needs, personal security, health, right? Physiological needs, air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing. All these things can be exploited, and they are exploited oftentimes to do this dastardly practice called depopulation. So just to finish this quote up, and we're going to get more into this, he says, birth control methods must be taught, talking about to the people they want to depopulate. So there's positive eugenics and negative eugenics. There's reasons that they would want certain populations to live long lives and have lots of kids. And they'll give them tons of money so they can go buy McMansions, and they'll be like, wow, look at all these rooms. We need to pump out some kids and fill them up. And then to other populations, like many people watching and myself, they don't give us any opportunities. They let us hang to, out to dry. They refuse medical treatment for us, and the medicines they do give us, you have to really question those, right? I got to be careful because we're on YouTube, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And then what's left is these, you get a lot of people who are suffering because of all this negative eugenics that's been done to us over the years, all the poisoning operations, et cetera, et cetera. People are on their last dollar, and so they're looking desperately. And then they send in the agents to convince them to take poison. And how do they do it? How do they do it? By telling people it's a miracle. This is a miracle mineral solution, right? That's what they say about chlorine dioxide. You're going to live longer. This is going to cure your neurodegenerative disorders, which I think was suggested by Cowan in his ridiculous, horrific video that came out years after this high-profile case in Argentina where a 5-year-old boy was killed by a product that Cowan says is a, quote, very safe substance years later. Shame. He says it's talking about methylene blue, which I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. He says it, quote, works in a way similar to how oxygen works. So I was talking earlier about how drives can be weaponized in the case of poisoning rats. It's kind of hard to poison a rat with the drive for air. But for humans, we all know that air is good and we want air and oxygen, more the better. So he likens it to oxygen. Methylene blue, he likens it to oxygen, which is just absolutely insane. I don't think he's this dumb. I absolutely think he is putting on a little show and using the power of suggestion, using his position as, what is his position? Like a failed doctor? But people look up to him because he pokes holes in a lot of the nonsense that's used to lock down and trick people into taking other poisons. But which poisons do you think are worse? Which groups do you think are more targeted? Look at this quote again. The lowest strata are reproducing relatively too fast. Therefore, birth control methods must be taught to them. So I would argue that these alternative quacks are actually doing more damage to us than the mainstream poison pushers. Here it says they must not have too easy access to relief or hospital treatment, lest the removal of the last check of natural selection should make it too easy for children to be produced or to survive. So evil. RFK Jr. came out the other day calling for legalization of full-term abortions. That's why I call him POS Jr. Long unemployment should be a ground for sterilization, or at least relief should be contingent upon no further children being brought into the world, and so on. Then we have the Kissinger report. I just like to bring this up because think about, okay, if they're capping the world's population, like in 1974, this Kissinger report calls for capping the world's population at 8 billion. Keep the level as close as possible to 8 billion. Right? So who do you think is going to get the hardest clampdown on their populations? Do you think it's going to be the people that are getting these huge corporate extravagant jobs with the huge paychecks so they can buy their mansions, fill them up with children? Or do you think it's going to be the people who are denied opportunities at every turn because they don't like what we believe in, what we stand for? You think we just got off scot-free? So that's why I hate these people so much, because they're doing this bidding knowingly or unknowingly. And I suspect the former. Of course, they're not going to come out and say that. And again, this is also tied into the whole rat discussion in terms of how they use the hunger drive and the food drive. They're also talking about doing this. They've probably done this in many directions with humans. I mean, this is a talking point we hear a lot about, like the climate change and pollution and global warming, water shortages, famine, and how this is from a document from the Club of Rome, the founder, co-founder and first president, Aurelio Pecci. In searching for a common enemy against whom we can unite, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. It's a common threat which must be confronted by everyone together. But in designating these dangers as the enemy, we fall into the trap, which we have already warned readers about, namely mistaking symptoms for causes. All these dangers are caused by human intervention in natural processes, and it is only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. So we need mind control, we need behavior control, total slavery. Then it says, the real enemy then is humanity itself. So don't mistake symptoms for causes. Global warming, that's just a symptom of the population. The cause is the population, and we need to address the root issue. That's what their argument is. They work backwards. They want people to come to these conclusions themselves or think that they did. We see here Paul Ehrlich, media darling, called a crusader of the population problem in this special New York Times piece here. A sterility drug in food is hinted. Biologist stresses the need to curb population growth. A possibility that the government might have to put sterility drugs in reservoirs and in food shipped to foreign countries to limit human multiplication was envisioned today. And so I just want to bring this up because, you look at like the Jaffe memo and the Population Council. The Jaffe memo says put fertility control agents in the water supply. That'll have a universal impact towards reducing the fertility. The Population Council, which is Frederick Osborne, who is big time into positive and negative eugenics, and also Rockefeller. They were thinking also about how do we reduce the fertility. There's too many people. They claim without evidence. Well, they talk about establishment of involuntary fertility control, mass use of fertility control agents by governments to regulate births at an acceptable level. The fertility control agent designed to lower fertility in the society by 5% to 75% as needed. Substance now unknown but believed to be available for field testing after 5 to 15 years of research work. To be included in the water supply in urban areas and by other methods elsewhere. They also talk about addition of temporary sterilants to water supplies of staple food, and they quote their guy, Ehrlich. So you don't have to put it in the water supply, though. Although I do think they put chlorine dioxide in water treatment supplies, oftentimes. How else can you get people to take it? Well, you convince them it's a medicine that they need that's going to help them. You just totally invert reality. And you tell them, hey, this is a miracle medicine. It's a wonder drug. Take this. We know you're in pain because we hear you've been being poisoned for decades and decades. Take this miracle. Don't look into the toxicity. Don't look into the fertility effects. Just take it. So I just wanted to remind people again from the jump here. But let's get back into this video. I've kind of gone off on a tangent here. This is Tom Cowan, and I totally disagree with pretty much everything he says.
Because all these organisms are really out there to help us. So I thought I would take a look at that and give us a certain point of view that hopefully will make this question easier to understand. And
the reason I'm talking about this is because I mentioned in my last video, just because I had heard people complaining about him pushing methylene blue. And then people said, oh, Tim, you're just making stuff up. He never pushed methylene blue. And I'm like, okay, maybe I heard wrong. I hope I heard wrong. And it's much worse than I thought. He's also pushing ozone, also toxic. He's pushing chlorine dioxide, also toxic, killed a 5-year-old boy in Argentina. And one of the things we're going to get to here is he touts this guy who is like being fingered here as the reason for this boy's death. Let's look at a little bit more of the article here from Business Insider. Argentinian authorities have charged Andreas Kalker, a key figure in a sprawling movement that hails toxic bleach as a miracle medical treatment. And we also have something similar in the United States. In Miami, this family here, the Grinons, were sentenced to 151 months in prison back October 2023. Let's see how that compares to... this is well after this happened. Cowan's taking to BitChute to really suggest a lot of crazy stuff about this product, utilizing the power of suggestion. And when you break down what he's saying, I just don't know how anybody can look at this other than trying to increase the uptake and excuse it and, lead people astray. So I'm starting to think a lot of the no virus people are really just con men, trying to gain your trust so that, the real voices out there that are asking the same hard-hitting questions, say DPL or Discern on Twitter or Jamie. They don't want you listening to the people who have the whole story right. They want to monopolize this whole discussion of like, oh, you don't like the tyranny? You don't like the lockdowns? Well, take this poison. And people will look at this. This is what I'm talking about, the reverse psychology. And especially because there's so many sock puppet accounts that I'm going to be deleting as they try to discredit me in the comments. They can make their own videos if they want. They're not going to use my comment section as an advertisement for poison. They're not going to use my comment section as an advertisement for urine enemas or for drinking piss or really what they're trying to do is convince people to drink their piss. What was I saying? Oh, but people will say, oh, Tim's just working for Big Pharma. They don't want us to have the secret cure to cancer. It's bullshit. Like you could make that argument about anything, like World Alternative Poison Cult. He goes by World Alternative Media, but that's what I call him. Pushing the cyanogenic seeds, these bitter seeds, or the Mike Adams / Northrop collaborations pushing grapefruit juice, which decimates CYP3A4 and inhibits PGP. And then when people get prescribed things like remdesivir, take these PEG mRNA shots, morphine, midazolam, others that I'm blanking on at the moment, then their accumulation of these are going to be much higher. They're going to get a mega dose just from the standard dose because they don't have the metabolism to break it down. They don't have the PGP to pump it out of their brains. So I look at this and I'm like, good, lock them up. Put them under the jail for all I care. I mean, look at this. Like, this is a photo from their premises. And I think I had seen some more of these. Let me see if I can find the whole series of photos. Just absurd. That, like, people think this is like a great product. And you look at it, it's like this huge blue vat, big drum of poison. May cause fire or explosion. Strong oxidizer. Harmful if swallowed. Causes serious eye damage. May cause damage to organs through prolonged, it's hard to say. Yeah, prolonged or repeated exposure. Very toxic to aquatic life. We'll talk more about the toxicity in a second. But how hard is it for people to look up toxicity for the drugs they peddle? Shame on these people. I'm so sick of these wolves in sheep's clothing playing dumb. Trying to see if I can find some more photos here, but look at this. These photos show dozens of blue chemical drugs containing nearly 10,000 pounds of sodium chloride powder. That's another name for it. Thousands of bottles of MMS and other items used in the manufacture and distribution of MMS, which is, you'll see in a second, what Cowan calls it too. Basically calling it a miracle. That's what MMS stands for. Miracle Mineral Solution. Wow. It's a powerful bleach typically used for industrial water treatment or bleaching textiles, pulp, and paper. The FDA has strongly urged consumers not to purchase or use MMS for any reason, explaining that drinking MMS was the same as drinking bleach and could cause dangerous side effects, including severe vomiting, diarrhea, and life-threatening low blood pressure. In fact, the FDA received reports of people requiring hospitalizations, developing life-threatening conditions, and even dying after drinking MMS. And so some people will be like, oh man, it's the FDA. If you just do the opposite of what the FDA says on everything, you're going to die. You're going to fucking die. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not saying to follow everything they say. You have to use discernment because there's lies put out in a lot of different places. And people get things wrong. And a lot of these people are like, oh my gosh, they're flooding the border with these fentanyl poisons and the heroin's coming in. And I'm with you. I hate poisons flooding our country. But why don't we have the same scrutiny for the quacks that push people into thinking it's a medical miracle cure and to ingest it willingly? And then when they piss it out, drink it again, shove it up their butts. It's like, what the hell is going on here? But he's going to bring up this Andreas guy, calling him like the world-renowned expert in chlorine dioxide. It's crazy. Bro, you're absolutely nuts and you're plain dumb.
Maybe Hope give us some guidance on this. And by the way, I would say that with all these things I mentioned, chlorine dioxide, methylene blue, ozone, turpentine, C60, zeolite, none of these are things that I actually used in my medical practice.
And the reason he doesn't have a medical practice anymore is because he had his license stripped because he gave a phony cure.
And so I don't have personal experience treating people with that. I do have some personal experience using them on myself. Actually, I would say all of these. But I don't have as a doctor, and I haven't taken a huge dive into the whole science of these things. I have talked to some people who I think know a fair amount about each of these, so I'm familiar with them, but I don't want to pass myself off as some sort of expert on any of these.
Well, don't worry, you're not coming across as one. You're coming across as a total quack, a dangerous, terrible person.
Giving you some ideas just to start this conversation going. So let's look at the first one, which was chlorine dioxide. And not so long ago, we had a conversation with Andreas Kalker, who I would say probably knows more about the use of chlorine dioxide than anybody else alive right now.
So this is the guy who's being fingered and charged following this 5-year-old boy's death. Andreas Kalker, pushing this industrial bleaching agent as a miracle medical treatment. There was a 7-month-long investigation by the UFIMA, which investigates medical crimes in Argentina. The investigation was launched after the August 2020 death of a 5-year-old boy, Western Argentina, multiple organ failure consistent with chlorine dioxide poisoning. The child's parents believed, on the basis of misinformation spread by Kalker and others, that the substance had the power to ward off COVID-19. Legal documents provided say. An Argentinian judicial source told Insider that Kalker has been charged with the legal practices of the medical profession and selling fake medicines. So you'll see Cowan playing dumb a lot in this video here, but he's also very cunning in his words. He's also very careful to say, oh, so-called medicines, or some people say this, or it seems to be that. So he doesn't have time to look up the toxicity or to relay side effects, which any good doctor would do. First of all, the doctor would not be using social media to tell people about poisons, implying that, it's good for people. A good doctor would start with a diagnosis after doing a thorough evaluation of the patient. And then once the diagnosis is reached, then you prescribe a treatment, right? There's nothing to have to do with BitChute with this process.
So, and I also hope to give you some idea of how to use it if you so choose. So, again, I didn't know anything about chlorine dioxide.
Yeah, I know you don't know anything. Well, you're pretending like you don't. But you're still going to tell people how to use it. Like, don't skip over that. He said, yeah, if you choose to use it, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. And he puts it up on the screen and he gives very detailed instructions on how to poison yourself with this crap. Talking about this guy who's been charged with giving bad medical advice leading to the death of a 5-year-old in Argentina as the world pronounced, or the biggest expert in the world. He knows more about anybody alive about this stuff. I'm so done with Cowan, man. I hadn't even seen this video, or I think I might have back in the day, but I didn't watch it because it's like, I see right through the medical phony cures. And I know what they're about. But I'm at the point now, especially after the backlash I got from telling people that drinking your pee is gross, and then everyone came after me. Not everybody, but they sent a bunch of sock puppet accounts after me. And again, if you're taking advice based off of how many thumbs up or thumbs down something has, you're lost, because that's like one of the easiest things to fake. I have exactly one BitChute account, right? I don't spin up sock puppet accounts to inflate my numbers, but there are people who don't have the same morals that I do who will happily spin up, hundreds of BitChute accounts just to get the ratios however they want them. So you can't fall for this crap.
Heard about it maybe 5 years ago, but I couldn't have said what it was or anything. But here's some basic stuff I got from the internet. Chlorine dioxide is a solution, is a concentrated aqueous, meaning watery solution of 3,000 parts per million of chlorine dioxide gas with no sodium chloride content and a neutral pH. MMS is a mixture of sodium chloride activated with citric acid that can.
So he's calling it MMS, which stands for Miracle Mineral Solution. So he's calling it a miracle. And why do we keep hearing this? Pierre Corey calls ivermectin a miracle when in reality it's a neurotoxic drug that can land you in a coma or kill you. We've heard other products, I'm not going to say which ones, that have been pushed as miracles. There should be a big red alarm bell going on. It's not the right term, but there should be alarm bells going off and this big like flashing red siren lights in your head when you hear doctors telling you that some poison is a miracle. Okay? This is not good medical research, by the way. This is like some ridiculous article that he just copied and pasted into a document. Like, why does he never talk about studies when it comes time to peddle poisons? He just never brings them up. Does he not think that this is like incredibly contradictory and hypocritical with his brand? Which is, constantly being unsatisfied and saying that the other side of the virology debate doesn't have any conclusive studies to back up what they're saying?
Contains sodium chloride. It is of acidic pH. It's the name Jim Humble, who wrote a book about this, gave to the mixture of sodium chloride.
Okay, so anybody who writes a book about sodium chloride really shouldn't be trusted as like an authority on it. Same with this other Andreas guy. These are the two guys that he's citing here. Jim Humble, who wrote a book basically calling it a miracle solution, and Andreas, who's charged, and by the way, was charged years before this video was made by Tom Cowan. Tom Cowan does not bring up a single side effect possibility. He brings up no drug interactions for any of these drugs he's about to peddle, which is like a laundry list of toxic crap.
Right, activated with citric acid at the time. It works excellent for many illnesses, but causes some stomach problem and some diarrhea, and has an unpleasant taste. Chlorine dioxide is a more...
Yeah, no shit, because it's poison. There's a reason why things taste unpleasant and then turn out to be poisons. Do we really have to explain this? And did you hear his voice when he talked about that? Has an unpleasant taste. Oh shit, I forgot to take that out of the Word document.
Advanced form of MMS, a mixture of sodium chloride activated by hydrochloric acid that contains sodium chloride and has an acidic pH, better in taste, easy to transport, has a secondary stomach reaction, and etc.
Or you can just put it in an enema and you won't taste it at all. Surprised he doesn't go there.
And chlorine dioxide is the gas from the reaction of sodium chloride activated with an acid. It's very soluble in water and evaporates at 11 degrees centigrade. So then there's some stuff about what is known about chlorine dioxide, that it's an oxidant and essentially is a donator of oxygen. And they say oxidation is used in a similar natural way by our defense cells, such as neutrophils, in the process of phagocytosis, which engulfs and burns the, quote, enemy in a very simple way.
This is insane. This is all insane. And he keeps comparing it. I think I cut the bit out where he compares it to sex. And he's like, sex is a way that we recharge our batteries. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Every time after I have sex, I'm just drained of energy. But I guess somehow he's saying that recharges your battery. Yet when you look at athletes who compete at the highest level, they practice abstinence for as long as they can before their competition. And like, this is very easy to demonstrate. You can do it firsthand, easy to test as to how much energy you have when you're abstinent versus, right after you have sex. But then what's even worse is he keeps comparing it with like oxygen and sex. He's comparing methylene blue and chlorine dioxide with sex and oxygen throughout this video and recharging your battery.
And so there's a little bit on Jim Humble and Andreas saying he got cured of his arthritis.
Oh, look, there's two of them in the same photo. And it's this Andreas guy saying he got cured of his arthritis. Like, I'm so sick of these like stupid testimonies where they just cherry pick something and it's, oh, look, a conflict of interest. You can't even find someone separate from like the whole scam con job. Oh, Andreas said he got cured of arthritis. And look, here he is talking with Jim Humble. Look, we have two whole people.
With using chlorine dioxide solution. And I got this is the way that I was described of how to make it. You get 2 bottles of the chlorine dioxide. You can get them from Amazon or other places. You put it in a sealed jar with a rubber stopper, put 250 milliliters of good water in the jar, like purified water or distilled water. Put a shot glass in the water so the top of...
So at this point, he has up on his screen detailed instructions on how to poison yourself with chlorine dioxide. So very much pushing it. And he tells people they can buy it on Amazon.
Of the shot glass is above the water line. Add 5 cc's of A to the shot glass, 5 cc's of B to the shot glass. Wait 12 hours with the jar sealed. The water turns yellow. Discard the remaining contents of the shot glass. Repeat the above steps. Wait 12 more hours. And again, discard whatever remains in the shot glass. The liquid in this jar is the stock CDS. So that's what I've and many other people have used.
Oh, he's used it, right? So how can a doctor push poison without actually risking going to jail? Oh, they just tell you that they use it, right? That's like a classic trick they do. Also, this whole idea that like they can't actually tell you to take a poison or that something cures something when it obviously doesn't. The way they get around that is, well, it actually plays into their favor a lot of times because people understand that they can't just come out and say something. So everything that they do suggest and every little word they say, people extrapolate because it's like, oh, well, he can't tell us. So he just gives us the wink and the nod and, oh, it's not medical advice. Oh, did he say it's not medical advice? I'm going to go get that stuff.
It's their stock solution. This keeps indefinitely if kept out of the light, like in a closet. Then you use the stock solution by adding, say, a teaspoon to 500 milliliters of water and drink that throughout the day. This is the basic protocol.
This is the basic protocol, he says. Just drink it throughout the day. Just fill your cup up with poison. Just keep drinking it throughout the day. This is the basic protocol. It's, in his words, he says, a wonderful and appropriate tool. It's, quote, a very safe substance. He actually says, quote, very safe substances, talking about methylene blue, chlorine dioxide, zeolites, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's so much that I've uncovered just researching all the shit that's pushed on the alternative crowd. That it's been mind blowing. And then I research into it because I'm like, I think there's reasons for everything here. Everything happens for a reason, and the reasons are not good ones. The reasons are like the Kissinger report, etc. Depopulation pays, and some people take the money. What was I going to say? There's something else. Let's watch that last bit again. It'll remind
To
me.
500 milliliters of water and drink that throughout the day. This is the basic protocol, and this can be adjusted to 5 cc's of water in 500 milliliters twice a day.
So he's just reading out poisoning instructions from this guy who is charged in Argentina. I'm not sure what the status of his case is, but it says here that when you kill somebody, or when your advice kills somebody, it carries a maximum of 25 years. The offenses, if found to have resulted in a person's death, carry a maximum of 25 years. And that's what I was going to say. He's just reading out this guy's recipe. Like, no talk about the side effects, no talk about this 5-year-old boy who died because the same guy and these types of people push in chlorine dioxide. So I don't know what to say other than I hate Tom Cowan now. And the people who said, oh, Tim, you're just making stuff up. He never pushes methylene blue. Yeah, you're trying to discredit me, but then I went and looked it up, and it's like 10 times worse than I thought.
And
maybe we should look at some of these toxicity facts. It's not hard to research this stuff. You just look up chlorine dioxide or whatever drug that's being pushed, toxicity. Chlorine dioxide is likely unsafe. It can induce severe vomiting, liver failure, and death. Maybe that should be passed along, Cowan. Maybe you should tell people that a 5-year-old boy died because your friend Andreas was misleading his parents, allegedly. But there's something else I wanted to show. You know, I look into, sometimes like a really interesting story comes across my desk, and I'm like, I could get a bunch of views off this, and it hurts my enemies, and I'm like really tempted to push it, and then I dig a little bit deeper, and I'm like, oh shit, this is a psyop to get people to take poison. And I fell for it apparently with some of these no virus people, but one example I would give here is this guy here who's been doing the rounds. Somebody emailed me, said, you've got to cover this guy. It's right up your alley. He was turned down by Project Veritas, and now he's going out there and he's blowing the whistle on one of these big pharma companies. I won't say which one. Pfizer. And then I'm like, okay, let me go check out his website. You know, at first I watched, one of these videos. I'm like, wow, this guy is really articulate. He's a good spokesperson for calling this stuff out. He's, calling out also Project Veritas to some extent, as well as Pfizer. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And then I look up at the top. Oh no, here we go. Wellness and detox. Then I start clicking around. He's pushing the zeolite, which I haven't done much research into, but everything's screaming like, Tim, don't take the zeolite. Do a deep dive into it. It's probably toxic poison. And I know there are toxic zeolites. I just don't know like what is actually in these zeolite products that they're pushing. But then I saw this one and I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to help push ozone up the butt, which is what their affiliate marketing here. Oh, how can I find this on this page? Oh, here it is. Whether you're interested in ear, sinus, or rectal, ozone insufflations, the basic package has you covered. So the basic package includes the option to shoot the ozone toxic gas up your butt. I made a song. I'm still trying to finish it. I put a demo out there. It's called Zyklon B. And I was kind of making a joke about how soon they're going to be telling us to like just take it suppositorily. It was a rhyme I did with Zyklon B. And the idea was like, in the old days, they would trick people into saying, oh, this is a delousing agent. Everybody get into the showers. We're going to heal you and save you from, what was the one that they were, typhus, right? Typhus. We got to get rid of the lice that are spreading typhus. Everyone get gassed. And then nowadays it's very similar. It's like, oh, you're really, at risk. You have parasites in you. You're full of spike protein. Oh, they're shedding on you. You have long this and long that. And also, I think spike protein might just be code for the male sperm count, spike protein, semen. That's something probably for a different video. But that was the point of the song. It's like they're just tricking people into doing Zyklon B by telling people it's a miracle medicine. Back to the whole like rat analogy I was giving. You can't trick a rat into taking an anti-fertility or lethal drug because using language. You can't tell it it's a great medicine that's going to make it live longer. But you can with humans. So, there's lots of articles like this one, harmful effects of chlorine dioxide exposure. And by the way, this video that we're looking at, after he touts this guy who's charged in Argentina for leading towards a death of a 5-year-old boy with bad medical advice, he has like a trifecta here. Actually, it keeps going. He also goes into, what is it? Chlorine C90, or I forgot what it's called. A discussion on chlorine dioxide, ozone, and methylene blue. He just rapid fires them off, says they're all, quote, very safe substances. So he gets into this ozone too, which my point is like, you have to dig deep and not take the bait. The bait is like, oh, look at this guy, Justin. He's speaking out against Project Veritas. He's speaking out against Pfizer. Then you look into it. Oh, shit. It's going to drive people to the website. And people are going to be shooting poisonous gas up their butts and into their ears. Like, what the hell? And then they call it detox. And I say this every time, but the word detox, most people think it means reverse or away from toxicity. But the only way that I can make this make sense is if they mean D as in thoroughly toxify, thoroughly toxic. Chlorine dioxide, often marketed under various names, miracle mineral solution, which is what the TLA, the 3-letter acronym that Cowan was calling it, was referring to, touted as a cure-all for autism, malaria, cancer, and most recently coronavirus disease. Now, speaking of like these cure-alls, there's also Urine. Have you guys looked at Urine, which is pushed by Mikovits, who's a crazy, dangerous, I think she's playing dumb. I was going to call her an idiot, but I think she's just playing the part. But Urine is like let me just pull this up here. Urine. Yeah. Inhibition of sperm zona binding. So like it inhibits fertilization of an egg or the sperm and the egg meet. And they push this on autistic kids through their parents. And they make these videos go viral like Plandemic. And then they turn around and they end up pushing all these toxic drugs like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Urine, etc., etc. But look at this. Inhibition of sperm zona binding by Urine, a potential lead compound. So like it's top of its class for design of a new anti-fertility agent. Like, are people not seeing the pattern here? And then you also see like this Mickey Willis guy who somehow was at the, what's that guy's name? He says he was at 9/11. And then he also says he was at the speech where the guy says, why can't we all get along, in the background. What's the guy's name? Rodney King. So he's like the Forrest Gump of the Quacks pushing poisons. But he has this product, it's very similar to like the Z-Stack, where they're, I think, giving out binary weapons that when people take the ivermectin, which Mickey Willis also made this like ridiculous propaganda fluff piece called The Truth About Ivermectin, is this bullshit fake documentary, pseudo science documentary. Not really a documentary, just propaganda. But he's pushing products that have like an insane amount of quercetin in them. Then he tells people to take ivermectin. And we've covered before that quercetin is a potent PGP inhibitor. And there's studies where they give like digoxin to pigs that are on quercetin and they drop dead. 2/3 of the pigs drop dead. And you can actually like trace why this happens. And it's because of the increased absorption of these drugs when these important, either the PGP detox pathways or the CYP3A4, for instance, which is an enzyme that metabolizes ivermectin, when these are inhibited. And I don't think this is a coincidence that quercetin and all these other potent PGP inhibitors are pushed at the same time. All these other toxic PGP substrates are pushed, like remdesivir, morphine, midazolam, the PEG vehicles carrying mRNA. Ivermectin itself, very toxic PGP substrate / very potent PGP inhibitor. This is all easy to verify. And I'm hoping that people can see the obvious pattern that you're like, do people feel like so entitled and so special that like you're not being targeted for depopulation? Why do you think that? Do you just trust everybody because they critique one product that you don't like and then push a bunch of other poisonous crap on you? But there's some other things I was going to say. Let's see if I can regroup here. Yeah, the Suramin being pushed for autism is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it seems like negative eugenics, as in trying to sterilize autistic kids, reduce the fertility. And then there's all these potent PGP inhibiting, or there's basically the toxicity enhancing drugs, which is also something that's done a lot with, say, like spraying for mosquitoes. I've covered this extensively. A lot of this is on my Substack. If you want to check it out, all for free, timtruth.com will take you right to my Substack. Please subscribe over there and read those articles. But what they'll do with, let me see if I can just pull this up. Come on. So there was this article / video I made, which is really crazy. I found a way to, through the developer tools in the browser, expand the search criteria, which was defaulted to like only letting me go 2 months back. And they had this map where you can see all the poison that they're spraying for mosquitoes. And I found a way to push back the, I think it's, here's the map when I expanded it. Look how much pesticide has been sprayed by the Sarasota County government in the past 8 years. 716 pesticide spraying missions since 3/18/2015. And then I also was able to get this CSV data. And so I was going through all of these things trying to understand, like, okay, what are these drugs that are being pushed? And you'd find that they do these crazy things like enhancing, or they call them like synergistic poisons. And so they combine things. They use binary weapons on the mosquitoes. And if you don't think they're doing this on us, I just think you're really mistaken. But I mean, there's so much evidence saying that chlorine dioxide is poisonous. Look at this one. Acute and chronic toxicity of chlorine dioxide and chlorite to rainbow trout. So chlorite is what happens once chlorine dioxide starts breaking down, decomposing. It says here, median lethal concentration, 96-hour lethal concentration 50 values derived from the tests were 2.2 milligrams per liter for larvae, 8.3 milligrams per liter for adult fish, and the 20-day LC50 for larvae was 1.6 milligrams per liter. Like, that's a tiny amount. Do you know how many milligrams are in, say, like a dime weighs? A US dime is like 2,200 or something. Going off memory, I forgot exactly. Over 2,000 milligrams. And then Due to its very reactive nature, chlorine dioxide is rapidly reduced to chlorite. So I'm just skimming here. I'm going to do a full deep dive on Substack. People have asked me for a long time to do chlorine dioxide, and I always knew it was a poison operation con. I just didn't know it was this bad. Basically, anything that Stu Peters pushes, I'm pretty sure you should be very, very, very cynical of. And anything that you hear pushed, just always look up its toxicity. Look up if it's a PGP substrate or a PGP inhibitor. Is it, for instance, we'll just look up how it's metabolized and what are the ramifications. One really interesting enzyme that I found over and over again, it keeps coming up. Many of these like big drugs that we heard for the pandemic are CYP3A4 substrates, meaning if you inhibit your CYP3A4, the absorption goes up. So let's look at this. Georgia Department of Public Health. Alert, chlorine dioxide ingestion. Ingesting chlorine dioxide products can lead to respiratory failure, potentially fatal abnormal heart rhythms, life-threatening low blood pressure caused by dehydration, acute liver failure, low blood cell counts, severe vomiting, and severe diarrhea. By the way, it hasn't been studied for cancer-causing effects. Let's see if we can find that. This is from the New Jersey Department of Health and Senior Services, Hazardous Substance Fact Sheet. Just skimming along here. Acute health effects. The following acute short-term health effects may occur immediately or shortly after exposure to chlorine dioxide. So it's also a gas. I think primarily it's a gas until it's liquefied. Contact can irritate the skin and eyes, causing watery eyes and seeing halos around lights. Breathing chlorine dioxide can irritate the nose and throat, causing coughing and wheezing. Breathing chlorine dioxide can irritate the lungs, causing coughing and shortness of breath. And the worst that Tom Cowan can muster as far as critiquing this is it has a bad taste. Why do you think it has a bad taste, Cowan? Like, how dumb can you be? How dumb can you actually be? I find this really, really concerning what this symbolizes and actually means if you think about it and think about the big picture and like, who can we trust? Who are people getting their information from? What information is being put out there? Cancer hazard, according to the information presently available, chlorine dioxide has not been tested for its ability to cause cancer in animals. Who needs to look up that, right? I'm joking, but there's limited evidence that chlorine dioxide may damage the developing fetus. Chlorine dioxide can irritate the lungs. So again, going back to this video from Tom Cowan, it's very interesting how he words everything. Pretending that he doesn't know any of the side effects, certainly doesn't relay any of the side effects. But if you actually listen closely, he makes a very concerted effort. He slips up, maybe you could argue, a couple times, calling it a medicine. Then he says so-called medicine. But he makes a very concerted effort to try to couch this as not medical advice while still being suggestive and saying things like it's very safe. He made the claim. Very safe substances. A, quote, wonderful and appropriate tool. For methylene blue, he called it an extended oxygen therapy. It, quote, works in a way similar to how oxygen works. He repeatedly compares it to sex and says for both of these things, sex and these poisons, that it's like recharging your battery. He says, well, we'll just play along here. I think this quote's about methylene blue, but he says, quote, very low or almost no toxicity. Like, what is he talking about? Why don't you chug a gallon of it, Cowan?
Adjust the dose based on the individual reactions, and that's all there is to it. And there's a lot of different protocols, so you can, I don't want to go through all those, but you can look at the different ones.
And he certainly doesn't want to go through the side effects.
This is the basic way of using chlorine dioxide solution. So what is it doing? So if we, and I would say this was more or less in agreement with what Andreas was telling us in our conversation with him, that basically chlorine dioxide.
And I couldn't find that conversation. I don't know if that was offline or if they published it and then later deleted it. I'd be curious though. I needed to search a little bit more. Maybe I can track it down if it's a video they made. When I searched Cowan and this guy, the other guy's name, Andreas, I couldn't find it. But, Cowan is still singing this guy's praises, calls him the most knowledgeable person about chlorine dioxide living in the world.
Dioxide is a charge, or what he would call electron donor. Now, that already is a little bit problematic in a sense, because we've gone through, what does it mean to be an oxygen donor?
So this part, Cowan's always got to throw in that he's like skeptic and he doesn't believe anything about science, but he's going to just go, tell you all about these poisons, call them very safe, and tell you all these things that some people say they can really do a lot of great miracle cures, but not medical advice, wink and a nod.
In his view, were electrons. I would actually change the word of electron.
Actually, I want to play this bit here.
So we talked about Gerald Pollack's very interesting research that we don't actually absorb oxygen from the air. What we absorb in his.
What are you talking about? We don't absorb oxygen from the air?
His view were electrons. I would actually change the word of electrons, since, as I've been over, if you look at the model of the atom that we're told, which is that the atom has a nucleus with protons.
So he has time to take out here and say, yeah, we don't absorb oxygen from the air, but he has no time to actually mention the side effects, which can be acute and deadly for the stuff he's peddling. And he's telling people, oh, you can buy it off Amazon. You can buy it off this link. And he links a site where they can buy methylene blue.
And neutrons, and then has electrons circling around it. That is basically a make-believe model. And you can even ask Erwin Schrödinger about that, who said, and I'm paraphrasing, if you could look into an electron, you would never actually find, an atom, you would never actually find an electron. So there are no electrons. And I would even say there is nothing. Let me just make this I'm going to make myself bigger here. There are no negative charges. There's polarities and different kinds of charges. And I think the word calling something a negative charge is an inappropriate terminology. So it's not a negative charge, but it's a certain kind of charge, which is opposite or different.
So I don't even know what he's drawing a distinction between right now, but he's really nitpicking about this. It's almost like some sleight of hand, like the magician making a big arm movement while he puts something up his sleeve, right? Where's the talk about the chlorine dioxide side effects? Why'd you have your license taken, Cowan? Why don't you tell people about the methylene blue side effects? Why don't you tell people about how methylene blue is a potent it's a potent CYP3A4 inhibitor, and it's also a PGP inhibitor.
And then other kinds of charge, which we call positive charge, and that gets into a little bit of semantics. So let's just say that the reason we need oxygen is because oxygen is a strong donor of the charge, which is what we need to produce energy and to create actually life. So now we're talking about a fundamentally different view of what a living system is, or even what substance is. And I know this may sound like I'm getting into the weeds a little bit when we're supposed to be talking about chlorine dioxide.
Yeah, you're supposed to be telling the side effects.
Come up with it's important to understand this in all of these so-called healing substances. And so.
Oh, the so-called healing substances. So we've got to take a time and just let's just deny the fact that humans absorb oxygen through their air intake. Let's take some time out and question electrons, which, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I think it's an interesting claim that's being made about how electrons orbit around the nucleus. I find it fantastical and hard to believe, and a really amazing thing if true. I don't have any reason to believe it or not believe it, but I'm like waiting for him to tell us the side effects of chlorine dioxide. What happened to the 5-year-old boy who is causing your buddy who you talked to for an hour to be charged with giving bad medical advice, possibly leading to the death of a 5-year-old?
So it's possible, and I think the real way to understand what chlorine dioxide does is it's simply a molecule that has been somehow configured to be a very strong.
Okay, what is he talking about here? He's saying this is the best way to think about chlorine dioxide.
Is it simply, and I think the real way to understand what chlorine dioxide does is it's simply a molecule that has been somehow configured to be a very strong donor of this so-called electronegative or polar charge. And since, in a sense, the root of all disease is a loss of the charge, and your battery is running down and becoming dead, you can understand why giving somebody a very strongly donating substance like chlorine dioxide, which is exactly how Andreas Kalker described it to us, it has a very strong ability to donate this electronegative so-called charge and therefore promote healing. Now, it looks like that it kills bacteria or viruses or fungi, but that itself is an illusion because it's not killing anything. What it's doing, like Florence Nightingale said, this decay process is a function of your battery running out. So if you donate this charge and sort of recharge your battery, then the tissue stops decaying, and your decay process, once it stops, then the bacteria don't have to come to feed off the decay, and that which we erroneously call viruses, which are just a misunderstanding of these of decaying particles that are coming from your tissue, they obviously stop or are lessened. And so you look like, or you think you've killed the virus or killed the bacteria when you've done no such thing. You've actually restored the health of the tissue, and then the bacteria don't need to feed off the decaying tissue, and there's no viruses that are produced. They're not actually viruses anywhere. There's no decaying tissue. The fungi go away because they don't have to eat up your decaying tissue to help you out, and then you seem a whole lot better. Now, I think if you frame it like that,
if you utilize the framing effect,
then you have a realistic understanding. I'm not saying that I or anybody else knows. I mean, we still have this fundamental sort of dilemma of how electromagnetic phenomena, waves, frequencies create a solid stuff called you. Like, I don't know how that happens. Now, having said that,
so I cut out a bit where he goes into like, I don't really care. I cut out a bit where he talks about like, if you make a sheet of gold, you can shine light through it. Okay, just get back to the poison you're pushing.
Worked, almost 4 decades as a doctor. I don't particularly.
Why'd you stop working as a doctor?
Have a problem with using a very safe substance, which is what all these appear to be. Like,
he doesn't have a problem using these very safe substances. Like, how is he coming to this conclusion? Did he do a Google search for chlorine dioxide toxicity? Enter. Methylene blue toxicity. Enter. And he's like, maybe somebody might be able to come bring evidence to me and show me that there are some downsides. Are you kidding, man?
Chlorine dioxide solution to temporarily relieve somebody's suffering who's got urinary tract infection or a whole lot worse. I mean, every illness, so-called, is a manifestation of decay and poisoning and a loss of charge. And in particular, this loss of charge due to exposure to electropositive toxic substances in our world. And so if you can, in addition, and I would be very clear, in addition or on top of doing all the other things like the food and the movement and the sunshine and the, negative, and not succumbing to a repeated negative thought pattern and all the other things, and using, other breathing techniques that help you put you in a state where you're charged, and working on your intimate relationships so you can recharge your battery, all these things, that should be first. But again, I have no problem with somebody using chlorine dioxide solution in the way that I just described to help them out, because I see very little downside reported. Or
You see very little downside reported. What about the 5-year-old that died because your friend Andreas's advice, according to his parents? And what are you even talking about here? Why are you making a video about this? Because you're trying to increase the uptake of these poisons, maybe? That wouldn't be it, Tom.
or something that I've observed. Again, I didn't observe this a lot in my practice, but we've had a fair amount of experience at the clinic. And I don't want to be too like I would never use this substance. It's not that I would never use just about anything. I think the more important principle is to understand what it's doing.
You have no idea what it's doing.
I have just described.
No, you haven't. What are you talking about? I'm so pissed off, man. This has been the worst explainer about chlorine dioxide I've ever heard. What are you talking about? You're like, yeah, it's like sex. It recharges the body.
Then you can see how it fits in, and that it is a wonderful and appropriate tool to help us out as we're also doing all the things to regain our charge. Now, interestingly, if we go to the next one, which is methylene blue, which I never even heard of until maybe a few months ago, you find almost the same thing.
So this is one of the worst presentations I've ever seen. He copies and pastes from Wikipedia about methylene blue and draws all these extrapolations and conclusions from it and tells people where they can buy it in an inexpensive and forgot exactly what he said. We'll watch it here. I've got some notes. He says, very low or almost no toxicity. Are you kidding? Like, what dosage are you talking about, first of all? He says, quote, seemingly drastic difference in people suffering from those sorts of conditions who use it. Okay, what studies are you basing that off of? Oh, some email you got? Someone who said they used it? He shares a link, and he says, yeah, you got to be careful about some of the sources of methylene blue. They're not the real, it's not the legit stuff. But here's a link, and it's easy and inexpensive. That's the quote I was looking for. He says, methylene blue works in a way similar to how oxygen works. How dumb can you play? How dumb can you play?
So what is it? This is from Wikipedia. There's some trade names. It's given in conventional medicine orally and intravenously. It's not to be confused with methylene blue or methyl blue, or
It's not to be confused with methylene blue. It is methylene blue.
Or all these other things. And there's the chemical. You can find it. It's called methyl thio, whatever it is, chloride. It's called methylene blue. It's a salt used as a dye in a medication. It's used to treat methemoglobinemia, which I've never seen, by chemically reducing the ferric iron in hemoglobin to a ferrous iron. So it specifically reduces methemoglobin levels greater than 30% and in which there are symptoms despite oxygen therapy. So we're already realizing that it's essentially an extended oxygen therapy. It's
an extended oxygen therapy. I'm so sick of like the plain dumb and just propagating really harmful information that's just total bullshit. So here's what I found on methylene blue. This is the fact sheet. I don't know if doctors are supposed to read that before making BitChute videos telling people it's very safe. Methylene blue inhibits CYP isozymes, including 3A4-5. That's the one that I'm most keyed into because of all these drugs. Like something like 50% of drugs are metabolized by CYP3A4. So if you inhibit it, what's going to happen? You're going to have more absorption, higher doses, even at the same dose. It's going to be equivalent to a higher dose in terms of the uptake because you can't break it down as quickly. And it's actually a very potent CYP3A4 inhibitor. From this chart here, the IC50 in nanograms per milliliter, just 122. Very, very minute amounts. Nanograms. Remember, a dime is something like 2,200 milligrams. So that'd be 2.2 million. Let me see. Dime weight. Oh, it was pretty close. 2,268. And if you look at how this methylene blue stuff is sold in just huge quantities, ridiculously large quantities, it's disgusting. But let's read some of this. And I was happy to see people sharing the link to this underneath his video, but of course he ignored it. So in a 2-year carcinogenicity study, rats were administered oral doses of methylene blue at 5, 25, or 50 milligrams per kilogram. Methylene blue caused pancreatic islet adenomas or carcinomas combined in male rats. So what's a carcinoma? It's a cancer that forms in epithelial tissue, which are tissues that line most of our organs, internal passageways in our bodies, and our skin. Most cancers affecting your skin, breasts, kidney, liver, lungs, pancreas, prostate gland, head, and neck are carcinomas. Methylene blue was genotoxic in gene mutation assays. So he's pushing a genotoxic substance, calling it a very safe substance. And those assays were done in bacteria, which is called the Amos test, which is one of the major ways they test for genotoxicity. And there was also an in vitro sister chromatid exchange test and an in vitro chromosomal aberration test in Chinese hamster ovary cells. I don't know how that turned out. I forgot to... I think I was mostly interested in this first part of the quote, but I need to follow up and see what happened with that study. Quote, fertility studies with methylene blue have not been conducted. In vitro, methylene blue reduced the motility, so the percentage of sperm that are swimming normally, which is a requisite for fertilizing of an egg. The sperm has to swim to the egg. So methylene blue, in vitro, reduced motility of human sperm in a concentration-dependent manner, which is hard to deny if you're just going to play dumb. You just got to turn your head away, pretend you don't see. Look at these possible adverse reactions. Aren't doctors supposed to read these out before saying that it's a very safe substance? Other adverse reactions reported to occur following administration of methylene blue include blood and lymphatic system disorders, hemolytic anemia, hemolysis, hyperbilirubinemia, methemoglobinemia. Then you have the cardiac disorders, palpitations, tachycardia. Then you have eye disorders, eye pruritus, ocular hyperemia, blurry vision. It's not a good sign. Then you have gastrointestinal problems, abdominal lower abdominal pain, dry mouth, flatulence, glossy dynia, tongue eruption. This one really jumps out under general disorders. Death. Who cares about that, right? Sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on the chat. People are really walking the line here. So death, infusion site extravasation, intrafusion site induration, infusion site pruritus, infusion site swelling, infusion site urticaria, peripheral swelling, and thirst. This is straight off the fact sheet. This is the fact sheet for methylene blue. Like, shouldn't you start there as a doctor? He started on Wikipedia and just looks like a fool, is a fool. Although I think he's playing dumb and really has probably a sinister objective as to why he's not relaying side effects and telling people all this fluffy stuff about recharging your battery. It's like sex. It's like oxygen. Also, they noted cases of elevated liver enzymes, myalgia, dysuria, as far as urinary disorders and renal disorders, nasal congestion, sneezing, rhinorrhea, oropharyngeal pain, necrotic ulcer. That sounds really bad. Palpule, phototoxicity, and hypertension is listed as well. Then under clinical considerations, under fetal neonatal adverse reactions, intra-amniotic injection of a methylene blue class product hours to days prior to birth can result in hyperbilirubinemia, hemolytic anemia, skin staining, methemoglobinemia, which, by the way, is something they say they treat with this stuff, but it also causes it, respiratory distress, and photosensitivity in the newborn. Under animal data, methylene blue was administered orally to pregnant rats at doses of 50 to 350 milligrams per kilogram per day during the period of organogenesis, so the generation of organs. Maternal and embryo-fetal toxicities were observed at all doses of methylene blue and were most evident at the 200 and 350 milligrams per kilogram per day doses. Maternal toxicity consisted of increased spleen weight. Embryo-fetal toxicities included reduced fetal weight, post-implementation loss, edema, and malformations including enlarged lateral ventricles. The dose of 200 milligrams per kilogram in rats, they say, is approximately 32 times the clinical dose of 1 milligram per kilogram based on body surface area. Now, keep in mind, nobody's really talking about dose here. He doesn't mention dose a single time. And he also, moving away from Cowan, if you just go to like Twitter, although I've blocked a lot of these people, let me just search methylene blue on Twitter. It's a disgrace. I think I blocked most of the, let's see, min faves. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Methylene blue stops brain cancer, this idiot pushes. I hate these people so much. I hate them so much. This person says, not a single supplement nootropic has ever benefited me. And he lists them out. And then, a lot of these types of photos of people just like, look, I'm drinking methylene blue. I'm putting it on my toe. Look, my pee is blue. It also dyes your brain blue, I hear. I hate this stuff so much. So they were like, oh, my friend just FaceTimed me and I was told about the methylene blue. I was confused why his tongue was blue. Then I remember trying methylene blue in the gym and loving the feeling it gave me. The mental sharpness I felt. The rush of energy. The mind to muscle connection I was having. I've been cycling on and off ever since. I just hate this crap, man. Heroic dose of methylene blue. Who's tried methylene blue? It's just a nonstop barrage of a cacophony of terrible medical advice. And people are just fish in a bucket, don't know better. People are so suggestible too, by the likes of Cowan and people they look up to. All right, let's continue here. Methylene blue was, and this is straight off the fact sheet, which I guess people can't be bothered to read and convey as they give terrible medical advice. Methylene blue was administered orally to pregnant rabbits at doses of 50, 100, or 150 milligrams per kilogram per day during the period of organogenesis. Maternal death was observed at the methylene blue dose of 100 milligrams per kilogram. So the mother dies at 100 milligrams per kilogram. Embryo-fetal toxicities included spontaneous abortion at all dose levels. So no wonder they're pushing it on dissenters and conservatives and people who don't want some other product that I can't mention on YouTube. And they also note a malformation umbilical hernia at the 100 and 150 milligram per kilogram day doses. So we're seeing like death. We're seeing spontaneous abortion. And people are just being told like, hey, just take a big drop, just pour it into your drink in the morning. And just when you wake up in the morning, piss into a jug and pour the methylene blue in and shoot it up your butt. And it's like, what hell have I found myself in? It's also really important for people to dig into the CYP3A4 and PGP research. I have a ton on timtruth.com, my Substack. I think this is the key to the puzzle they don't want you to figure out, because this is how the binary weapons work. All these holistic doctors pretending like they have no idea about drug interactions. For example, there's a huge like lethal drug interaction potential with methylene blue and I think SSRIs. Let's see. Which like a ton of people are taking antidepressants. That's a different story. But they never talk about this. When people say, oh, it's very, very safe. It's very safe. It's like, okay, what about people taking antidepressants? Oh, I didn't say that it was safe for them. It's like you said it was safe for everybody. Okay, what about if they take 50 milligrams per kilogram? Oh, I didn't say that dose. That's too much. Well, you didn't say dose at all. Like, it'd be like saying Zyklon B is safe and effective. Then you say, no, it's not. And they're like, oh, well, if you take a very small amount, you microdose. What are you fucking talking about, man? You didn't say that. So it can cause serotonin syndrome in patients on SSRIs. I think I get into this in the article. Let's just keep going through this. So I thought this was a really interesting article about various CYP450 enzymes and methylene blue and the time needed based on a single IV dose of just 1 milligram per kilogram to reach a blood concentration of methylene blue that would render drug interactions insignificant. So just 1 milligram per kilogram, and you have to wait this long, 2 days for 2C9. But looking at this key one here, which I highlighted, 96 hours practically after methylene blue. So it's almost like they're trying to kill people with binary poisoning and then hoping that people go take a potent, toxic CYP3A4 drug within those next 96 hours. That's how I see this. The concentration max refers to the highest concentration of a drug achieved in the body after administration. Okay, these are just some stats here, or some definitions to the uninitiated. It says, the statement mentions that the R values, which provide a numerical measure of the extent of inhibition, with higher R values indicating stronger inhibition. So going back to CYP450 enzyme studies, actually going back to methylene blue, the R values ranged from 4 to 60. This means that methylene blue exhibited varying degrees of inhibition on the CYP450 enzyme studied, with some enzymes being more strongly inhibited, higher R values than others. According to this source, methylene blue carries an IC50 for the crucial enzyme CYP450-3A4, or just CYP3A4, of just 122 nanograms per milliliter to inhibit 50% of CYP3A4. Now, nanograms per milliliter is a concentration measurement. You could put that in moles, for instance, as another unit of measurement. But I'd be interested to see how that compares with grapefruit, which is a classic CYP450-3A4 inhibitor. Just nukes like 50%. One glass of grapefruit juice nukes 50% of this crucial enzyme, and you can see these huge spikes in CYP 3A4 substrates when people drink grapefruit juice first. Many of the ivermectin studies precluded anybody from drinking grapefruit juice. In terms of safety, case reports indicate adverse events and fatal toxicities. So people died, okay? In terms of safety, case reports indicated adverse events and fatal toxicities occurred when methylene blue was given to patients taking antidepressants, including selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, SSRI. These antidepressants are metabolized by CYP450 enzymes. So it's killed people. And these are like in clinical settings where doctors are supposed to be looking at this and countering this stuff. But what about just out in the wild where people are being told to just buy it off these different providers, buy it off the internet and just have it shipped to your door with no talk about the side effects, being told it's very safe? Like, this is a recipe for our friends just dropping dead. Like, why doesn't anybody come and join my side and go to war against these bastards pushing this crap? Let's go to this paper here. In vitro assessment of methylene blue hydrate as a multiple CYP450 inhibitor and a mechanism-based inhibitor by Zhang et al. Drug-drug interactions remain an important issue in the drug discovery and development process. Especially cytochrome P450 inhibition and mechanism-based inhibition, MBI, might cause clinically significant DDIs, so drug interactions. So why do we never hear these holistic doctors pushing or telling us about drug interactions? Don't you think that's odd? In fact, why are they purposely exploiting them? Why are they purposefully exploiting drug interactions? Do I need to explain? Methylene blue at a concentration of 10 micromoles showed more than an 87% inhibition for 6 CYP450 enzymes. This whole list here, these 6 and then 3A4, which is a very key enzyme responsible for metabolizing like 50% of drugs. Many toxins. IC50 value for, okay, let's just skip through here. So that's the concentration required to inhibit 50% of said enzyme. So let's skip ahead to 3A4. 2.71 micromoles. And just 1.01 micromoles when using a different substrate as measurement. So the first was when they used nifedipine, and the second was when they used testosterone. As a result, methylene blue showed moderate to potent inhibition in 6 tested CYP450 isoforms. So these are the enzymes that metabolize and break down drugs. In a paper called The Interactions of P-glycoprotein with Antimalarial Drugs, including substrate affinity, inhibition, and regulation, quote, a positive F-lex ratio was observed with methylene blue. It could be reduced by about 50% when co-incubated with PSC 833, which still left a significant F-lex ratio associated with this drug. So what they found here is what it says, implying PGP and other transporters are continuing to remove methylene blue from cells. And that's good because it's a toxic substance. It doesn't belong in our cells. It's not oxygen, Cowan. It's not oxygen at all. How dumb can you be? So PGP is this crucial enzyme that we keep seeing being purposefully inhibited by all these quacks on the internet pushing these PGP inhibitors like K2, quercetin, CBD, for example, really potent, on par with like verapamil. All right, so let's look at the mutagenicity of methylene blue. There's a paper called Mammalian Genotoxicity Assessment of Methylene Blue in Plasma, Implications for Virus Inactivation by Wagner et al. And the key thing, I don't want to focus on the virus part, as many of you are aware. It's an important topic for a different video. But look at this key line. Methylene blue is mutagenic in cultured mammalian cells. Say that again. Methylene blue is mutagenic in cultured mammalian cells. What about carcinogenicity? Under the conditions of these 2-year gavage studies, there was some evidence of carcinogenic activity on these F 344/N male rats, based on increased incidence of pancreatic islet cell adenoma or carcinoma and adenoma combined. Then they did like a 1-month study, repeated dosing methylene blue in mice. None of the mice in the 500, 1,000, and 2,000 milligram per kilogram groups survived to the end of the study. They all died. Where are the ferret advocates when you need them? This is really sinister, and it makes a lot of sense why all these poisons are pushed on people who won't take certain shots. Like, I can't believe I have to spell this out. So, from 500 milligrams per kilogram and up, all of them died. And again, a dime weighs 2,268 milligrams. A dime. In the 250 milligram per kilogram groups, 2 females died on days 16 and 18, and 2 males died on days 6 and 13. Hypothermia and abnormal posture was observed in mice in the 500, 1,000, and 2,000 milligram per kilogram groups, presumably before they died. Dosed mice developed this thing that they say that methylene blue is used to treat. Like, this is like the typical thing that they say they treat methylene, or they treat with methylene blue. It's called methemoglobinemia. And they also say the dosed mice developed a regenerative Heinz body anemia. Quote, significant increases in spleen weights versus the vehicle controls. Lesions in the spleen associated with methylene blue trihydrate administration included hematopoietic cell proliferation, pigmentation, and congestion. Liver lesions associated with methylene blue trihydrate administration included periportal degeneration, hematopoietic cell proliferation, and Kupffer cell pigmentation with erythrophagocytosis. Quote, forestomach lesions that were related to methylene blue trihydrate administration included Fokker ulcer, inflammation, and squamous hyperplasia. That was a 1-month study. Let's look at a 3-month study. Dosed rats developing methemoglobinemia and a regenerative Heinz body anemia. So we see that again. More spleen lesions in dosed rats. The incidence of bone marrow hyperplasia were significantly increased in doses administered 50 milligrams per kilogram and higher. Here's a 2-year study of continued methylene blue dosing in rats. Dosed male and female rats developed methemoglobinemia, and females developed a regenerative Heinz body anemia. Now, this is where it gets concerning. The incidences of pancreatic islet, actually, it was already concerning, but this is where it gets cancerous. The incidences of pancreatic islet cell adenemia and adenemia or carcinema combined, let me say that right, carcinomia, that's still wrong, carcinoma, sorry, were increased in all dosed groups of males. So increased incidence of pancreatic islet cell adenoma. I keep mispronouncing this. Adenoma or carcinoma combined were increased in all dosed groups of males. Significantly increased in 25 milligram per kilogram males and exceeded the historical range in controls, which is kind of interesting. The incidence of pancreatic islet cell hyperplasia was significantly increased in the 50 milligram per kilogram males. So I'm going to skip over the repetitive stuff. It's important to see this pattern over and over again with these things we keep mentioning. But again, the 2-year study, they kept seeing, in this case, malignant lymphoma, and the incidence in 25 milligram per kilogram males exceeded the historical control range. So more carcinoma and adenoma or carcinoma. Then there's the genotoxicity studies where they take bacteria, Salmonella typhimurium strain TA98 and TA100. Mutagenicity was also observed in Escherichia coli, is it E. coli strain. So they found mutagenicity. Did I read this right up here? Methylene blue trihydrate was mutagenic in these 2 Salmonella strains. It was also observed to be mutagenic in this E. coli strain. In cytogenic tests with cultured Chinese hamster ovary cells, methylene blue trihydrate induced sister chromatid exchanges and chromosomal aberrations. In the 3-month micronucleus tests, a dose-related increase in the percentage of reticulocytes among the total erythrocyte population was observed in both male and female mice. There are many, many methylene blue drug interactions. Many of the methylene blue drug pushers fail to mention the major adverse drug reactions when methylene blue is combined with other commonly used drugs. There's a huge list on drugs.com. 193 drugs known to interact with methylene blue. This is why it pisses me off so much. These people call themselves like the truth about cancer, and we're holistic doctors who are experts and we know everything. We know those things they want to get you with in the arm are bad, and then they just totally ignore all the side effects and all the drug interactions. You can't be a good actor. You cannot be a good actor. You must be a bad actor. So 127 major drug interactions with methylene blue, 64 moderate. It's highly toxic and difficult to be degraded, according to this paper called Synergistic Degradation of Methylene Blue by Laser Cavitation and Activated Carbon Fiber. So they're just talking more about the environmental aspect. Highly toxic and difficult to be degraded. Then there's this paper here, Fundamentals and Photocatalysis. I don't know why I can't pronounce that. Of methylene blue dye using various nanocatalytic assemblies. A critical review by Din et al. Look at this quote. Methylene blue is a carcinogenic pollutant widely known for its hazardous impacts on human and marine life. But somehow all that, much of that from the fact sheet itself gets chalked up as very safe substances by Tom Cowan. Let's go back to his video.
Given intravenously. It's also been used to treat cyanide poisoning and urinary tract infections, but this is no longer recommended. But it was used and in the ER for, I think, decades, intravenously and orally to treat cyanide poisoning. And what is cyanide poisoning? Jerry Pollack described this as you're instead of breathing oxygen, you're breathing a form of oxygen which isn't able to donate charge anywhere near as effectively, or maybe hardly even at all. And so if in the absence of that charge that you need and get.
So why did they stop using it for it? Does he even ask that? I mean, he barely mentions it. Oh yeah, it's no longer recommended. Why is it not recommended? Let's go check that. Let's go check that link out. Let's see, methylene blue wiki. And it's also important to note that there are people pushing these bitter nuts, calling them like a cure for cancer, which is absurd and evil. And they're carcinogenic nuts. I forgot if it's apricots or what's the other one? I think apricot kernels. Might be almonds. I don't know. Some bitter nuts which are carcinogenic, meaning they break down into, actually not carcinogenic, cyanogenic. My bad. They might be carcinogenic. I'm not sure, but the word I'm looking for is cyanogenic. Bitter nuts, as in they generate cyanide in the body when they get broken down. So that's what comes up in my mind when I'm thinking about the how it used to be used. It's no longer recommended. Let's go to the Wayback Machine and see what this article that he is reading off Wikipedia in the one-liner says. See, isn't it weird and interesting that they say that they use it to treat methemoglobinemia, yet we see in all those animal studies that it causes methemoglobinemia? How does that make any sense? It's like, well, it has been used historically. That's also their excuse for piss drinking. Well, they used to drink it in India. So therefore, like, what are you talking about? This is not science. No longer recommended for this use. Do not use methylene blue in an attempt to treat excess methylmoglobinemia because reduced cyanide binding and increased toxicity occurs. Let's see what source 9 is. Okay, it looks like some sort of a reference document. You have to wonder, why don't they use it anymore? Right? And you can't just claim that it's like, oh, look, it's great for cyanide poisoning, but it's no longer used or recommended. Well, maybe you should explain that, Cowan. Why not?
From oxygen, then you essentially lose your charge, suffocate, and die. That's how you die of cyanide poisoning. So when you realize that this substance has been effectively used to treat this, works in a reductive sort of way, similar to how oxygen works, you start realizing
it works similar to how oxygen works. You start realizing that, wow, this is great stuff. Not. So, and then here it is again, methylmoglobinemia, which is, we saw time and time again, it was causing methylmoglobinemia. And then he skipped over the part where it says it's typically used by injection into a vein. Common side effects include headache and vomiting. While use during pregnancy may harm the baby. Just skip over that. I haven't heard anything bad about methylene blue. It's very safe, it appears, he says. Wink and a nod, not medical advice. It's like, oh, it says right on your stupid document here.
Here's the history of it with cyanide poisoning, that you start realizing that this is a oxygen, i.e. a charge donor. And it just happens to be a different chemical, which happens to, for whatever kind of molecular, it's the wrong word probably, reason,
yeah, it's probably
able to donate charge is more effective.
So he keeps pushing it like it charges your battery. Like somehow it's like plugging your iPhone into the wall. So, and that sounds like, I mean, that's like a sales pitch to me. Like, oh, do you feel tired? Well, have you tried recharging your battery with this poison? And I think the way that you might sometimes get like a positive effect in the short term, similar to like if you smoke crack or do meth, is because you're poisoning yourself and your body might go into like fight or flight, right? Just because you have like a little bounce in energy and then you crash, doesn't mean that it's like a good recharge of your battery. It's just patently absurd. And then after that piss poor, pun intended, terrible primer here, he gives us an article, a link to how to buy it from a site called Only Results Count. Depopulation pays.
Than most other things, you could see why it has become a interesting treatment for all sorts of neurodegenerative disease, particularly memory problems.
What is he talking about here? Who's pushing it as a treatment for memory problems? Who's pushing it as a treatment for neurodegenerative issues? You just making shit up now, Cowan? It's an interesting treatment for neurodegenerative issues that you can buy here. And people were giving me grief in the comments, and I was hoping that I was wrong. People were like, what do you mean Cowan pushes methylene blue? Is it never pushed methylene blue? And I just searched BitChute, Cowan methylene blue. And this video comes up, and I'm just sitting here horrified. This is worse than any horror film I've ever seen.
Depression, Parkinson's, pain, Alzheimer's, all these things, which are based.
Did he just push it as an Alzheimer's cure? Did he just push it as a depression cure? What did he say?
Disease, particularly memory problems, depression, Parkinson's, pain, Alzheimer's.
Pain, Parkinson's. He's casting a pretty wide net there for this terrible, terrible poison.
All these things, which are basically just a losing of the electrical charge.
Yeah, you just need to recharge, man. That's what Parkinson's is. I mean, how crazy can you be, man? Yeah, you lost your charge in your battery, man. You just got to take methylene blue and recharge your battery. This is nuts. This is absolutely pseudoscience quackery, and a very dangerous form of it.
In the deepest, most profound area where the
Has he talked a single point about the dosing? Like, what dose is he talking about here? If it's good for memory issues, people are just going to start drinking this stuff. Like, oh, look, I can get a gallon of this stuff, get a volume discount. What's the dose you're talking about here, Cowan? I'm physically nauseated.
charge has to work, which is our nervous system. It does this in the same way that oxygen would, but in this case, as they say, the oxygen therapy isn't strong enough. So there happens to be this chemical which seems to have very low or almost no toxicity, that is able to strongly donate.
Whoa. It works like oxygen. It has very little or no toxicity. Note how he says seemingly? Like, you skipped over the part where it can harm the baby if a mother takes it. A pregnant mother. This is nuts. This is worse than nuts. Wonder how much he got paid for this.
Which seems to have very low or almost no toxicity, that is able to strongly donate a negative charge and make a seemingly dramatic difference in people suffering from these sorts of conditions. Now, again, I haven't used it, and maybe somebody will convince me that there is some negative effects from this. There may be, that I couldn't find any documentation of this so far, but there may be. And I'm not saying that this is the first thing, but again, if we're in a situation where somebody is in full-blown dementia or Parkinson's or other kind of ALS, and we have already done the appropriate, neuroregenerative type of diets. And
if we've already done diets and grounding, he's going to say, and if we've used crystals, he's going to say crystals. I guess this goes under the crystal column of medicine.
Really serious attempts at earthing. I've seen people who basically bury themselves in the ground for hours.
I bet you have seen people bury their loved ones in the ground. There's that 5-year-old boy in Argentina, right? Is that what you mean by earthing?
A day to absorb the charge from the earth. So we're talking about serious connection with the, electromagnetic forces of the sun and the earth. And they've done breathing, and they've done herbs, and they've done energy stuff and crystals and Vogel crystals, all these things which also are essentially detoxifying negative charge donors. And they've done, detox coffee enemas and turpentine, which is essentially a fat soluble or fat deposit.
So much medical misinformation. It's hard to even keep up here. Turpentine is another huge red flag for me. See, when I see people start peddling poison and giving terrible medical advice and pushing these binary weapons that synergistically enhance toxicity of these other poisons that other people are pushing, I just basically want to throw out everything they push. Which, I mean, that's a bad, like I said earlier, reverse psychology is a bad way to go about anything. But, something tells me the turpentine is a nasty poison as well. Let's look this up. Turpentine toxicity, right? Oh, look, in turpentine poisoning, so it's no vitamin, various signs and symptoms of toxicity may develop, including hematuria, renal failure, loss of vision. So the opposite of Jesus. Miracle. Chest pain, vomiting, severe coughing, gastroesophageal hemorrhage, hypotension, swelling of the throat, and even death. Oh, look at that. Okay, so that figures. Can people not be bothered to search toxicity? Just type the poison that they're pushing and put space and put toxicity. It's really easy.
Detoxifier and maybe...
Oh, it's a detoxifier that can kill you. I mean, what are you talking about, man? Do you not feel obligated to tell people side effects? How do you sleep at night?
Certain kinds of fasting. So they've done all that, and they're still not where they want to be. I don't see any particular reason right now that this couldn't be something that could be tried, and hope.
Oh my gosh. So, like, what is he actually trying to accomplish with this video? And what the hell are they recommending over there at the new biology clinic behind closed doors? I mean,
We can sort of monitor whether there in fact are any negative effects, which I'm not hearing.
I'm not hearing, man. I just can't hear it. I'm not hearing anybody yelling at me. You hear me now, Cowan? You hear me now?
And that's how I see this. Now, it's also true you don't have to go through all those steps in every case. This is something that you might.
Yeah, you don't have to try the crystals in the ground, and you can just jump straight to the poison if you want. I mean, no one's going to stop you, man. Look, there's a link for you.
Want to use somewhat before that. It is also thought of as being works like red light therapy, like the sauna space.
Which one is it? Does it work like saunas and red light, or does it work like oxygen? Can it really be both?
Again, you could say, well, that's unnatural, but the evidence is that the red light therapy stimulates this mitochondria function, which generates more ATP, which helps the proteins unfold, which helps the water form in this mesophase or crystalline structure, which generates the charge, which is charging your battery, which is the essence of life. So I see it in the same
it charges your battery, which is the essence of life. Just charge your battery up with this poison. It's the essence of life. It reminds me of the clastogenic ivermectin, the neurotoxic ivermectin. Remember how they were circulating these videos of like people who were like in a daze, like out of it, and then they took the ivermectin, they were running around lifting weights with the horse mask on, like it was an energy drink or something. When if you actually look at it, it's like a depressant, and I can show studies where they give it to like monkeys, and you can see in the photo, it's like, this is typical behavior of the monkey, and it just looks like really depressed, and it's like staring down, like disassociated, and it's like, yeah, they stopped participating in normal activities. But then somehow it gets pushed on us like it's an energy drink, like it's somehow it's going to recharge your batteries. Which, I mean, how does that not sound like a good thing to people? How is this not going to increase the uptake of it? Yeah, it'll just recharge your battery, man. Just take the poison. I haven't heard anything bad. Bro, you just early in the video were promoting this guy who there's like nationwide, worldwide news that this Andreas Kalker's advice potentially, allegedly, led to the death of a 5-year-old who was given chlorine dioxide by his parents, who were really pissed off.
Category as using red light therapy and use.
The good news is that once we expose all these people and people see the bad actors and they start looking up toxicity and they say, oh, wait, the way that this depopulation agenda is really working is they trick people into taking the poison themselves. They have it shipped to their front door and they take it because, like I said earlier with the comparison to rat poison, the difference between humans and rats is that language can tap into higher drives, like the drive to want to live longer, the drive to want to get healthy, right?
Using saunas and help with detoxification. I'm not saying that we don't do all those things. I'm just saying there may be, in addition to that, a few different substances which actually can help us also with that, and we should be very careful using them so that they don't become crutches or create side effects.
Wait, it could create side effects now? I thought it was really safe and recharge my battery. I'm confused, doctor. It's like you can tell he's tiptoeing around and like, how can I push this poison and not get in trouble? How can I just totally omit all the side effects, all the drug interactions, including the deadly ones, and just pretend like it's what I'm hearing on the streets. I haven't heard anything bad. You skipped over the lines in your own document that kind of hinted at it, but that's far from the full story.
But that's how I see it. One of the places I think we need to be sure, I know they use methylene blue also widely with animal medicine with good effects. And there is some concerned that some of the methylene blue that's sold over the internet is not really methylene blue, and so I would be careful about that. One place that I know you can get it that
You wouldn't want fake poison, guys. You got to get that real poison. You got to check this legit source out.
claims that it's exactly the same chemical, and they put it in structured water, and they put some so-called healing frequencies, is a website only result.
They put the healing frequencies. Let me type this out and see if I can find it here. Only results count. Methylene blue 100 milliliters. Not coming up in the search. Onlyresultscount.com. Okay, let's look at what he's linking up here. I take their marketing material as part of his sales pitch. Our methylene blue is possibly the best available in the whole world. So yeah, when you put the word possibly, they just take a little snapshot from this on their phone PubMed article. Oh my gosh. Hope. Remarkable hope for depression, AIDS, Alzheimer's, autism, cancer, heart disease, cognitive enhancement. It's like that. Do they know how to write English? It's like remarkable hope for all these terrible things, and then they throw in like one positive thing and then another negative thing. They got their fake rating there. This is insanity. Worse than insanity. Oh, look. It's the base formula used to create ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Wink, wink. Two more poisons that are terrible that were thrust upon us because they wanted to poison us and we wouldn't take some other poisons that were top of the menu. Wow. See, like, this is the thing where they're like, just take one drop. And people will be like, well, I'm just going to do more, right? Like, we all know how these supplements go. Like, people a lot of times won't follow the stated instructions, like, and they'll just take a bunch. Especially when you pitch it like it's a fucking energy recharge power cord. Oh my gosh. Oh, it cures aging, I guess. I'm joking. YouTube censorship bots. This is terrible. I'm like dying inside. So he puts a link to like this huge sales pitch. This is the most insane thing ever. Let's see the terms of service. As a modification of manufactured products and a manufacturer of artistic items, only results count, and its agents are unable to make claims to diagnose, treat, cure, and prevent diseases. Oh, I thought you just did a bunch of that. It's not intended as medical advice and holds no guarantees. Let's see here. No information contained in this website should be used by any reader to disregard medical and/or health-related advice. Nothing contained in this document or website is intended to be used as medical advice and is not intended to be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or otherwise any illness. Oh, I thought you said at the top it's hope for all these things. Nor should it be used for therapeutic purposes. No liability is accepted. See, this is where it comes in. It's totally safe and effective, guys, but we take no liability. Same thing as like these ivermectin shills. If you look at the bottom of their website, it says things like, by using our website, you agree to hold us harmless. Like, no, I fucking don't. You're pushing poison on the internet. Like a really nasty poison, too. No liability is accepted for any injury, loss, or damage incurred by use or reliance on the information. If you use our information, it's like we don't take any responsibility for that. You should not use any information contained in this website to initiate use of supplements, vitamins, herbs, blah, 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 right? Any wording mentioned vocally or in written information from anyone accosted to this business can only be taken as a hypothetical statement. Opinion using freedom of choice, freedom of speech. That's what they're talking about when they say medical freedom, by the way, the freedom to poison you. without ramifications. Such wordings or statements on the context that is claims to cure, repair, stop, reduce, or treat in any way, shape, or form of cancer or other illnesses is not to be taken as literal. Don't take it as literal. Text can often be slip of the tongue for entertainment or hypothetical reasons and should never be taken as facts, including the word fact, proof, or other statements made based on this definition of fact. What? These words should only be considered for entertainment purposes and are not to be taken seriously. If for any reason you believe that the information you're being told may be facts, it is upon your own beliefs, I actually misspelled that, and opinion, and cannot be used to hold any responsibilities toward this business or any of its associates. Testimonies that may be shown on this website are told to in purpose of via video footage are obtained with permission. But this also is excluded from any fact-based wordings or statements. Oh, look at that. Why did they always do this? Let's just skim through here. This is a long-ass... and I'm sure Cowan has some more verbiage somewhere protecting his butt, too. But, I mean, these people deserve to go down. Put them under the jail for all I care. And that's what he's linking up there. Absolute disgrace. Should we finish this up? I'm gonna skip the urine drinking collaboration and urine enemas and drink your urine every day and do urine enemas with Amanda Vollmer.
And they have a fairly inexpensive product which you can easily get, and they have a lot of directions
it's really easy to get, man.
How to use it.
But it's just like the what's the act called? It's been a while since I talked about this. The PrEP Act and the what's the other one? Oh, I'm blanking. Someone help me in the chat. The PrEP Act and there's the other one where they're like, yep, you can't hold us harmless. Or you have to hold us harmless. Nobody can be found in trouble at any step of the process when it comes to I'm just blanking on the terms, but it's as bad as the PrEP Act, right? And these poisons are probably worse than the ones that everyone's talking about. So I just wanted to remind everybody that there are wolves in sheep's clothing in our midst, and they use all these fears. Like I might have cut it out in this video, but they always talk about like, oh, the 5G, the Wi-Fi router, oh, the blue light, oh, the parasites, the chemtrails, the fluoride in the water. It's like, and then they'll go off on the certain product I can't mention on YouTube for over and over and over. But then when push comes to shove, once they build up that fear, it's just more poison shipped to your door. Terrible medical advice, hoping that you just mix and match and overdose and croak. So if you're sick of being inundated with a bunch of liars and people pushing poison on you, come join the community that we're building over at groupdiscover.com and timtruth.com. I don't allow bullshit on my channels and my platform. So I just delete people pushing poison, but it is a good platform, a social platform where you can share videos, groupdiscover.com, and we run a 50% off coupon code to like-minded people. And the way I know you're like-minded is the coupon code is anti-poison. Anti-poison gets you 50% off your life. Keep this work alive, because if not, I have to go back get a job, which I'm pretty much on the doorstep of. Who's going to be calling out all these charlatans? Who's going to be calling out all these Jim Jones characters? And there's a lot of them. So I think I'm on the cutting edge. I just keep trying to bring you guys the truth. Keep trying to dig up the biggest scandals. There's no sacred cowans out there, no sacred cows. We go after anybody who's betraying the public trust. And I just want to thank everybody who does support this channel. It's very hard to keep independent reporting alive. Very, very hard. But I'm going to keep doing this because it pays much better than money. You know, people in the comments accuse me of, oh, Tim's masters are paying him and telling him to knock these cancer cure-alls. Nope, I'm getting paid very, very little, just from people who want to support this show. No corporate overlords. I had a couple advertisements that are very clearly labeled back. You might remember those back in the day for various like mining companies or something, which is a big help for the show. I didn't have to beg for money, but at some point I do have to beg for money. And I put a song out the other day that I like. It's about Plato's Cave called Shadows and Chains. And there's a line in it about, I'm always paid for what I find, but it's not the normal kind. So I'm paid with insights and knowledge and discovery. And I can't think of a better way to be paid. You guys can all keep your Judas bribes, shove it up your butt with your ozone gas, and go to hell. Not the people watching, but the Jim Jones characters. I want to thank everybody so much. Thank you for hitting the like button. I'm sure we'll get a lot of trolls. I'm going to delete them all, ban them all. I'm not taking sock puppet accounts, pushing poison and drinking piss and shoving stuff up people's butts. And that's a service I provide for you. So if you like this show and you appreciate people getting called out and people driving and pushing an issue, you can also send me any news tips. timtruth@protonmail.com. Again, I'm always paid for what I find, but it's not the normal kind. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.